This is Adrian Warnock's Christian Podcast. Thank you for joining us. Right, well, hello everyone. Right over here. Hi there, how are you doing? Keep going, that's awesome. That's great, thank you. Over here is probably one of the most welcome sights in the universe right now. A friend of our family, well, not really actually, but he might as well be, because he's bringing food from Sainsbury's. It's been awesome. Been able to get a food delivery because I'm on this vulnerable persons list. So I'm supposed to stay inside this room, but I'm allowed to open my window and stick my head out. So that's what I'm doing. This is my view right now over here. And as I say, I've never been more happy to see bags of shopping being delivered. And we're doing the right thing, because we're not supposed to take the bags in until this lovely gentleman has finished putting them out. And family of mine will take it in for us. But as you can see, this is my view here. And I'm perched. And those of you who know me will probably think, don't fall, Adrian. So I think perhaps I'll come in. Oh, well, Harold. Nice to see you there, Harold. And Rich. Oh, you really are my new online buddy, aren't you? I see you. I see you there. And thank you for joining us. I'm going to sit down now. I've actually brought a chair into my bedroom from the lounge. Yeah, so I'm actually, and there may be people in your community like this, or maybe even people who watch this who are in the same position. So we're in different levels of lockdown. So you've got those people who have key work, and obviously they are still working, and they're out and about. But they are only supposed to go out if they really have to. So if you can't work from home, and if your job is really important in the UK right now, you are allowed to go out to work. Too many people have been going out. So the message to everybody is stay home. So really, that's what you can do. Some people can work from home. You'd be amazed at what you can accomplish through working from home. I did actually produce a list of tips for people working from home or being self-isolated, because it's not the first time I've been at home. I spent 10 years working from home, not for any health reasons, but just because of the job I did. So yeah, and I think, you can go and look at that on the blog, but I remember saying, look, if you're going to work from home, it's best to do what I did this morning, which I must confess I didn't do yesterday, which I got fully up and dressed. I even had a shower. I'm in my trousers, you see, just proof. I'm not wearing pyjamas today. Let me just thank the delivery guy. Thank you very much, mate. Someone will come and get that in now. Thank you. You're a good man. So one of my family members are going to do that. Sorry. So yeah, so if you are going to work from home, try and get yourself up and dressed. And that's probably a good idea, even if you're isolating. Yesterday, I must admit, I stayed in my pyjamas all day. Didn't have a shower. Oh, smelly. And that was partly because I wasn't quick enough, because one of the pieces of advice that I'm supposed to do is not go into the family areas of the house if I can avoid it. Obviously, I have to use the toilet. In our family, it's not very easy for me to designate one to myself. So the advice then is, if you want to have a shower, try and go in first. So I went in early this morning while everyone else was asleep, wiped all the surfaces down with some antibacterial wipes that we fortunately bought before all the restrictions on shopping came in, and had my shower. And I feel much, much better for it. Obviously this hair is beginning to grow a bit. I think there's going to be an awful lot of new hippies coming out. Back to the working from home thing. Get yourself up and dressed. And if you're not one of these vulnerable people, so for me, it's because of my blood cancer. So I have blood cancer. I have very poor immunity. So I've been told by the government, I received about 5 texts from them saying, do not leave. And everyone should have had the text saying, do not leave, except for 4 reasons, which is work, shopping, which obviously we're not doing. We've managed to get a delivery. So no one in our family is doing that. Going for a walk. I'm not supposed to even do that. There's even a debate about whether I'm allowed into the garden. And of course, for me, going into my garden involves walking through the house where everyone else is breathing. And, it's very strange, actually, treating your family and everyone that you would normally want to meet as almost like pariah, It's like you can sort of imagine what it must have been like in the sort of times of the plague and the Black Death, as all these communities just put up the walls and say no more. I mean, isn't it shocking? There are still a few flights, but I don't see any in the sky right now. I mean, I guess the only people flying are people trying to get home. And if anyone is watching, I would say please get yourself home whilst you can, because there are already some people trapped in countries they don't want to be in. And Rich is asking, how's it affecting the family? Well, they're seeing a lot less of me, so I'm not bothering them, which might be a good thing. They're also having to cook for themselves. What I didn't say was that right now there are members of my family who are not feeling very well, who've got sort of flu-like illness. We don't think it's COVID. Of course, it could be, but we don't think it is, although it's a nasty flu if it's not. And so I'm even more needing to be careful. But in fact, I think, what day is it today? It's Tuesday. No, it's Wednesday. So actually, we're on, I think it must be I've lost track of the days. I think it must be day 16 since we had to go on lockdown because one of my kids got a flu-like illness. And of course, that, as usual, runs ravage through the family, and one after the other, they all get it. But ever since last January, when I was in the middle of chemo and I did get the flu, and it was a nasty flu, but obviously not as bad as this thing that some people are getting, I did think I need to wash my hands. I need to use my own towel. I would keep 6 feet away from my family most of the time, especially obviously if one of them was ill. So if you're chatting, I would sit on a sofa on the other side of the room rather than right next to people, and obviously use my own towel to dry my own hands, and not use public transport. I mean, obviously I couldn't go out much anyway because of my energy levels. I mean, ironically, of course, my energy levels are a lot better than they used to be, particularly actually because I've had a sinus infection, which is not quite gone yet, but it's on the way. And as I treat my sinus infection, my energy levels are going up, but I can't do much. So it's good in a way, because obviously I can now do some exercises. So yesterday I did my first, so a bit of accountability, I did my first set of exercises in my bedroom, and did a number of things, including some star jumps, but I had to stop them because my wardrobe started to shake alarmingly, so that's not so good. But I did do some lunges, some stretches. I even attempted a push-up. Didn't get very far. Some sit-ups, of course. Actually, one thing I didn't do, which I should have done, is a plank. So it's all about strength, because one of the things I know from when I was sick before, and I had pneumonia in April 2017, is that you lose your muscle mass really, really quickly. So, and this is something for all the family members as well. So one or two of them have bought boxing. They bought boxing gloves, and they bought those hand things you can punch. So they're doing a little bit of exercise in the house. They, in theory, are allowed to go out to, for example, walk, but they're not supposed to be any closer than 6 feet to anyone, even if you go out walking. I'm not supposed to even do that. And actually, I was saying the 4 reasons. So it's I see if I can remember. It's shopping, it's exercise, but I can't do either of those. It's work, which obviously I can't do. And the 4th reason, medical appointments. And actually, for most people at the moment, hello, Linda. I should say hello to people. Hello, Pembu. Hello, George. Hello, Dave. And hello, Gary. Hello, Johnny. Oh, Johnny, you know what? You seem to be online every single time I do one of these, which is wonderful. Hi, John. Hi, Moyo. I've already said Rich. I said hi to Rich. So, yeah, sorry, I'm waffling on, but I've been locked up in this room. So the medical appointment. So yesterday I did have a bizarre thing, actually, because I had a telephone consultation with my consultants, and they'd actually got a district nurse to come and do blood. So they're really taking it seriously. I'm described by my GP as housebound for clinical reasons. So I really am starting to feel old now. I'm a housebound old man. I even had a fall a couple of weeks ago, but I'm recovering from that. So that's almost gone. We think I might have broken a rib, but they didn't X-ray me, and that was in the house. So here I am, this old guy with grey hair. I mean, I've had grey hair for a while, but had a fall, housebound, and hi, Caroline. Nice to see you. I haven't seen you for a long time. and haven't seen anyone for a long time, actually. Yeah, because it's about 16 days now since we were housebound, and I think I went to church. Yeah, so you lose track of the days a little bit, but you get into a new routine. So, you get up. I've cleaned up the room as best I can. I have my medicines in the room, so I don't have to go and get them from elsewhere. I've got a plate. I've got a loaf of bread and a bit of butter and peanut butter. Actually, no butter. We've run out of butter. Oh, Johnny, you lost your hair. I didn't know that. Well, you're still young, though. You're a lot younger than me. You're a lot younger than me. Now, here's the thing. I've never done this before, so I'm looking for a volunteer. Which of you have got a phone and would be willing to actually join me? What's the word? And actually talk to me, because I believe it's possible to join. So Johnny, for example. Oh no, I don't. It's so weird. I don't actually know how I do this. No. Is there a way? I thought that with this Facebook Live thing, there was a way of bringing you on to the screen. I don't know. So I was still sort of waffling around a little bit, but still talking a bit about how it's affecting the family. So actually, no one has left the house for about 16 days, really, apart from my son, who went and got his sister. So we're now all 7 of us in the house. But the weird thing is that I'm obviously having to phone them and talk to them rather than seeing them face to face because of this government instructions. So a few little tips. So if you're living in the UK right now, I already said, if you are working still, try and find a place in the house that you can work. You can keep it a bit separate. How do I do it, Johnny? Do you know how I do it? Because it doesn't seem to let me want to do it. I really thought you could do it. Maybe if I go like that? No? Does that help? Oh, I can't turn my phone while recording, okay. It's very odd. Does anybody know how I bring you in? Because there's a plus button here. It doesn't allow me to do it here. If I click on your face, it gives me the option to block you, Johnny, but not to bring you in. And then, don't know. Very odd. Do you know how I do it, Johnny? I have really no idea how I do it. That's very, very strange, because I do remember the theory of being able to invite people, because I remember pouncing on people before and trying to do it. Maybe you have to be doing it on a computer and not on the phone, because I'm doing this on my phone. So, Johnny, I tell you what, as I can't seem to get you in, tell me what you're getting up to. Text me some stuff. Text me some questions, anybody. So I'm still sort of answering Rich's question, but also getting digressed about the advice. So, if you're working from home or you're self-isolating, I do have a few tips on my blog you might want to have a look at. Getting dressed was one of them. If you are working, finding a place and also a time where you're going to work. I found that I used to work longer hours, actually, when I work from home. So you really have to discipline yourself to take a break. I would say do take the opportunity to think and reflect. This is a great opportunity for you to stop, think and reflect. There's actually something that the psychologist, who is very well known at the moment and quite controversial, called Jordan Peterson does, which is a self-authoring program. And it may be that I'll do that at some point over the next 12 weeks because you're stuck at home. So it gives you a chance to stop and think. And his idea is that if you stop, think and write about your life, think about your history, think about your present, think about your future, that can be quite a difficult thing to do for some people. It can bring up a lot of emotions, but it's kind of almost like a form of therapy, really, and helps you to then sort of live with purpose. And for me, obviously, there's a lot of things that are behind me. At the moment, I'm not able to work, as you probably know, and I may not be able to get back to work for some years, if ever. I don't know. It's difficult to tell at this point. But there are some things I want to do with my life, and one of them is to still carry on blogging. So there's a little bit of blogging going on, and to do some interviews. I had a great time interviewing Rich. In fact, there's a little bit more content that I haven't shared yet online for Rich. And just a little plug, If you're interested in revival, and this is a great time to be interested in revival, Rich Johnston has a online revival conference coming up quite soon. In fact, some of the content's already available. I really encourage you to do that. If you go onto my blog, adrianwarnock.com, you'll be able to find a link to Rich's Christian mindfulness. And again, that's another thing that, as a tip for people, this is a great opportunity to get into mindfulness and meditation, obviously prayer and Bible reading, worship times. Don't just put worship music on in the background, but actually take some time out to really allow the truth to soak into your heart. It's one thing to be able to worship God in the public place. It's also sometimes a bit harder to do it in the private place. And obviously there's been times when I've been unwell that I've had to be able to do that. Not always been very good at it, to be honest, and perhaps still aren't. But whatever you can do to focus on God at this time is really, really important. Also, I would say try and limit the amount of time you're watching the news. That's a bit of a hard one. I do tend to like the science, so I found a sciencey guy that I like to watch every day. And when I might put a link up to that guy below the video. He's quite interesting, not Christian, but interesting just in terms of keeping up with the science. And obviously I watch a bit of the news. I do like the Coronavirus Newscast. And actually I'm wondering, it might be that if I really wanted to limit myself for a few days, I might just restrict myself to listening to or watching that. It's got people like Laura Krunsberg and some of the BBC experts on there telling you stuff. But I mean, one thing you definitely don't want to do, and I haven't been doing, is you don't want to be watching the news all day, because it's pretty depressing. Although there are some encouraging signs, a few encouraging signs at the moment. Number one, there are countries that have put these lockdowns in and have actually managed to flatten their curve. China and South Korea are the two main ones. We really want to see now. Critical thing now is once China starts to lift its ban, will the curve pick up again, or have they managed to actually suppress it in their country? So that's a really important thing. We'll be watching that. Because otherwise, if when you lift the restrictions, it comes back, we are looking at months and months of restrictions rather than just the few weeks. We've been told 3 weeks. Well, I've been told 12 weeks. But it's been said, look, this is not a short-term thing. Don't want to get political, but whoever it was, some of you know who it was, who said that everything will be sorted by Easter is not correct. That's just not going to happen. What we need is a few things. We need, we do need, and I know people got a bit annoyed at people saying this, but we do need some people to have this illness and recover and get antibodies. And it's for two reasons. One is those people will then be immune, and they actually protect everyone else. So actually, in a bizarre way, if all my family do have COVID right now, if I can avoid getting it, and they all then get the antibodies, then they are then a shield around me because they can't get it again. And so if I only met them, I would be able to relax a bit more in my house. Now, of course, we have heard that the UK government have ordered millions of antibody tests. So just for a little bit of science, for those of you who aren't following it so closely, you can test your nose and your throat with a swab to see if you're ill at the time. So see if you've got what they call viral load. And obviously once that's gone, you can't infect anyone. But what the other thing you can do is you can, in the future, very soon, you're going to be able to test your blood, and it will be a bit like, I think, people who have diabetes. Rich, I remember you mentioned when I interviewed you that you have diabetes. So like a fingerprint test that will then allow you to put a drop of blood on a device that will look a little bit like a pregnancy test, and then that will demonstrate whether or not you've been exposed. So don't worry if you can't get a test at the moment. You will be able to get a test that will look back and say, yes, you've got antibodies. Now, the other thing which will be needed at some point is that people will need to have what's the word? Yeah, there's the talk at some point about doing passive immunity. So that would take volunteers who have antibodies and donate it to people who don't. So we'll see whether that comes off. And obviously treatment is being looked at as well, and a vaccination. So there is, lots of positive things happening as well. And it's great to see the way communities are coming together and helping one another. And I've been the recipient of that. And obviously my family have been very supportive as well, which is great. So now let's have a look. I think maybe one or two people have maybe asked a question. So then, where are we? Oh, Tim. Hello, Tim. I'm going to go in quite soon, I think. But no one's got any questions. So I'm sort of running out of things to say, which is quite unusual for me. But I guess I'll let you go. Hopefully one or two of you, my friends, we can do a sort of web video call together. It doesn't look like we can do that on live at the moment. Maybe it's because I'm not on the computer. I don't know. But yeah, just hang in there, and I think we do well to remember that at times like this, God is with us. Jesus did not promise. So I'm going to leave you with a Bible verse. Jesus did not promise that we would have a good life. Many people think we have. George, type out the question and I'll answer it. But whilst you're typing it, let me just share this. So many people think that Jesus promised us a good life. He didn't. He promised that he would be with us. And that's really important. So what Jesus actually said was, in this world, you will have troubles. We're obviously, as a world, going through troubles right now, many of us. Fortunately, maybe it hasn't touched you personally yet, except for inconvenience. And that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, many of us are like, oh my gosh, I've got to stay home. My parents, well, not my parents' generation, but my grandparents' generation, were asked to go to war. So George, do ask your question. But they were asked to go to war and go into the trenches. We're being asked to stay home and watch Netflix. So it's not a huge sacrifice to save a life. But well done if you're doing that and you're able to do that. And well done as well if you're a key worker and you're out there, saving lives in the NHS or doing things that need to be done, like getting food to us, like the gentleman earlier was doing. So, George, do type your question. Here we go. Right, so your question, a plant-based diet. Oh my gosh. Look, a plant-based diet is a hugely controversial subject. There are some people who think we should eat only plants. There are other people who think we should eat only meat. Plant-based diet, you do have to make sure you get enough vitamin B12 if you're going to go down that route. But you can be healthy that way. I think the main thing that I would say about diet is to avoid the carbs, avoid the processed foods. That would be the main thing I would say. I'm not sure that it really helps specifically in cancer. I mean, it might help some people to lose weight, which could be a good thing if you're a little overweight like I've been. But it's not a bad thing to get rid of your carbs, really. And of course, eating a plant-based diet is one way of doing that, to sort of cut out the cake and the Coke and the lattes. Do you realise lattes can have like 30 teaspoons of sugar in them? And our bodies are just not designed to cope with that. Oh, Johnny, sounds like you're quite excited about that comment about food. But yeah, if you can get food. Now, yes, I knew there was something I wanted to say. For those of you that can't get food, do just keep trying with the online internet ordering companies. They are releasing slots. So I know Sainsbury's released quite a lot of slots yesterday, around about 3 p.m, just for everybody. But if you've got, if you are yourself over 70, or if you are like me, one of these people who got a letter or an email from the government saying that you're particularly at risk, you can contact Sainsbury's if you can eventually get through on the phone number, and you can ask them to put you on a list, and that's what gave us the order. Now, otherwise, I've just heard this morning, that new Covent Garden fruit and veg market obviously is not selling very much to all the restaurants, and so they've decided to open a fruit and veg box delivery service, I think including bread. So if you're struggling to get a delivery, you can get that from there, and I think that's well worth having a look. I don't think that's been around for that long, so hopefully it's not inundated. Local dairies are sometimes doing deliveries. Again, some of those that might have only delivered to businesses before have actually got extra stock. And then, as I say, getting on with one of these vulnerable persons thing. And if you are a vulnerable person, or if indeed you're self-isolating because you're worried that people in the family have got it, this is a time to not be afraid. So it's New Covent Garden Market. If you search for New Covent Garden Market, or not, for anyone, and you can get nice fruit and veg from there. And as I say, the supermarkets are releasing new slots, and so I would strongly recommend that, although I have to admit, I thought I'd lucked in because I put in my order yesterday toilet rolls, because I think we're down to our last roll, and they didn't send us any today, so they still don't have any toilet roll even in the delivery, unfortunately, even for the priority people. But yeah, if your parents, for example, if you're young, my mum and dad told me about this because they're over 70 and because they had a Nectar card linked to their Sainsbury's account, they'd already been put on this vulnerable persons list. So it may be that someone you know is in that category. And if they aren't on the list because they don't have a Nectar card, they could perhaps try applying for a Nectar card now, or more likely actually ringing up and saying, look, I am old, I am vulnerable, whatever. And I guess they'll try and prove that somehow. Unfortunately, the way things are at the moment, some people are going to ring up and lie, I guess, which is a bit of an unfortunate situation. But yeah, if you're fit and healthy and do get involved in helping, it was really quite a blessing to me because I went onto a local Facebook group. I didn't want to bother our church because we live a bit of a way away from the main centre. And so I went onto a local Facebook group earlier in the week when we were struggling to get food in. And I said, hey, can you help us? And sure enough, people volunteered immediately, brought us a little bit of stuff. Actually, it was Subway closed, and they donated all their stock. So my kids were really happy because they love Subway. So we got like 2 carrier bags full of Subway stuff yesterday. Really, really good. And delivered by, it turned out, a lovely brother who used to be in a New Frontiers church, but goes to a local church near us, because when he moved up here, we're, as I say, we're about 20 minutes away from Jubilee here, so it's not too bad. But there are obviously churches closer to us, and he was going there. So I thought, no, that's good to see that our Christian brothers and sisters are putting their necks on the line, if you like, and helping and volunteering. So if you're able to do that, then that's one of the reasons you can go out. You can do things to help other people who are vulnerable, and you can be a blessing to them. But do maintain the distance. So just like our delivery person did, he put the food at the door, then he rings the doorbell as he goes away, so we don't actually have to meet him. And that should be done for everyone, but especially for those who are, because the whole point is this: we want to reduce the spread. Because there's this whole thing about exponential. One last little bit of science, perhaps, before I disappear. And that is this. The whole reason is real simple. Exponential growth. Because if I have the disease, fortunately I don't, but if I do, and I give it to 2 people, and then a couple of days later they've given it to 2 people, that's 4 people. And you think, well, that's not a problem. But of course, what we're seeing is that once you start getting to 1,000, 100,000, so we got to 100,000 just a matter of days ago, cases around the world. And suddenly, within a couple of days, it was 200,000. And a couple of days after that, 400,000. And it's going to go up and up and up at the moment, apart from when we lock down. So, it's not rocket science. You stay home. If you can halve the number of contacts you have with other people, you halve your risk of getting infected. If you can reduce it by 75%, you reduce your risk of getting infected by 75%. If you can reduce it down to 0, as I'm doing, where I'm literally really not having any interactions, then obviously, you are you're free. And actually, bizarrely, I'm starting to feel like almost less anxious than I normally would, because obviously flu is something I've been trying to avoid for months anyway. So it's a bit weird. It's a little bit welcome to my world, because the things that I've been doing personally, like being careful about what I eat, washing my hands, keeping social distance, I tend to hug rather than shake hands. And when I do, the face, goes away. So I'm not actually, that's what I've been doing for months. Separate towels, being very careful to use a fresh towel that no one else has used. And actually, when you do wash your hands, for goodness sake, dry them on a paper towel or something like that, or even just air dry if you have to, because what you don't want to do is dry them on a dirty towel that other people have used, because otherwise, no point. But the reality is, for most of us, unless you do radical measures like I'm doing, if someone in your household gets it, you'll all get it. And so that's why we want households to remain separate. And people have been told to make their choice and stick with it. And obviously trying to avoid spreading the germs as much as we can. And that's a social responsible thing to do. A lot of people think it's an overreaction. It really isn't. And if you understand exponential growth, then you'll realise it's not an overreaction. The number of deaths are the thing to watch. Forget about the number of cases, because there's huge variation in the different countries about how many tests they can get. And for most governments, they are testing as many people as they can. It's very easy to criticise the governments, but there's only limited numbers of tests available. Others are being produced. We've ordered millions of these antibody tests that will prove whether you've ever had it, which will be great. Because once you know that someone's got it, they can't really get it again, or if they do, they'll get it a lot less severely normally. And so those people will be then able to go about their business a little bit more, and, for example, look after the sick and not worry about catching it. So that's a really important thing. Yes, no, I agree, Johnny. I mean, it's really difficult because what we're trying to do is, cause the country to go in reverse. In a way, you can't slam the foot on the brake completely overnight. A simple thing. I mean, someone was saying, well, why didn't we just stop all the planes? Well, the trouble is, if you just stop all the planes, then, Aunt Johnny your aunties, your uncles, your friends, your family are left. Oh, Mark, that's very kind of you. Your friends are left where they are. So right now, it's really about repatriation. No one should be leaving their country in order to go on holiday, clearly, anywhere in the world. But people are trying to get home quickly. And before long, I think the airplanes will stop. I mean, they're reducing massively already. And so if you are abroad, get home as quickly as you can. Yes, there'll be a bit of a risk on the plane. But if you don't do that, you will be stuck where you are. And arguably, perhaps you should be stuck already. But yeah, it's a risk worth taking as long as you isolate yourself when you get home. And so if you move into your family home after being abroad, no matter where you've come from in the world, ideally you should stay for 14 days in a room, not expose your family members to that. Once you've done that 14 days, then you are no longer carrying it until you meet someone else, when of course you could be. So anytime you meet somebody, you could be carrying it for the next 14 days. So that's really critical. Now, of course, different people will have different levels, and as a household, you might all be isolating, in which case, I wouldn't have to necessarily stay in the room. Or some of you be isolating, and in which case the ones that aren't clearly need to minimise the amount of time they go out of the house. And perhaps those people might be wise to stay separate, sleep in a different room from others and such like. And some people have obviously got to go out still. And then obviously, there might be some households where everyone's a doctor or a nurse or a teacher, and in some cases the teachers are still providing childcare for our doctors and nurses, which is wonderful. Hello, Debs. Nice to see you. So I've been waffling on probably for long enough. I'm getting quite tired. Unless anyone's got a last minute question. So just to say again, check out Sainsbury's, Tesco's and the others. They may just put little slots in place from time to time. I know Sainsbury's released some around 3:00 yesterday. And I think Tesco's obviously will be releasing them as well, and all the others. If you can get onto the vulnerable persons list at the moment, Sainsbury's is the only one that I know of that's doing that. If you are over 70, or if you have one of those conditions that make you high risk, like I do, then they will put you on a vulnerable list. And I had video proof that works earlier in this call. New Covent Garden have just said that they can do fruit and veg boxes to anyone in the country. Don't know what the prices are, but if you're desperate to get some fruit and veg and maybe even some bread, I think, then do that. Try your local dairy. Some of them have got lots of extra stock because they used to deliver to restaurants and such like. And don't be afraid to ask for community help. That's one of the things that's very difficult maybe for someone like me, is that, I'm used to the one in the past. I was the one providing help. So you have to humble yourself and you have to say, okay, I need some help here, and ask for help if that's what you need to do. And as I said earlier, Jesus said, in this world we'll have troubles, and he promised that. He always keeps his promises, but he did also say, take heart, take courage, because he's overcome the world, and he's with us. He will be with us, and God bless you. Yeah, Johnny, I'd love to have a video call with you as well, and I hope you feel better soon. Johnny, if you can direct message me your mobile number, probably the easiest way to do the video call is on WhatsApp, and I would encourage people to do that. That'll be my last thing. You've all seen my ugly mutt. I would have liked to have seen some of your faces. I was planning to bring people in, but I didn't seem to be able to do that. But you can do WhatsApp calls with people, video, and you might have never done it before. You might think, oh, it's awkward, I don't want to do it, don't like cameras. I understand all of that, but we need face-to-face contact, and this is much, much better than doing a phone call. It will feel awkward the first few times you do it, but it's remarkable how quickly you relax into it. And I've done it. I used to do it with my father when actually we were both in hospital at the same time at one point. He also had blood cancer at the same time, so it was a bit of a hard time for our families. When was this? I think November 2018 must have been. Is that right? Yeah. So we used to do WhatsApp on the video between our hospital beds, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world right now, you can spend FaceTime or WhatsApp time, or there's other options as well. Zoom is very good for groups, actually. So I might at some point set up a Zoom call with a few people. I've done some with Rich, who was watching this, and again, I'll be releasing a bit more of that on my blog. Keep an eye on my blog. There'll be a little bit of content, not too much, but there'll be a little bit of content over there at times. And I've done a lot, actually, of writing about suffering and how to cope with suffering. And a lot of that is based on Tim Keller's book, excellent book, Walking with God Through Pain and Suffering. And as a nation, we're suddenly doing that. Whether you're facing it yourself personally or not, you will have people around you that will face it. You will have people that you know who lose people. Boris Johnson did say, and he's been much more honest with us than some governments, without mentioning any names, and he said, look, many people are going to die. Many people are going to lose their loved ones. It's going to get a lot worse. So if you want to upskill yourself, you can do one of two things. You can get a hold of Tim Keller's book and read it. It'll take you months, though. It did me anyway. It took me a long, long time. Or you can go over to my blog, and there's a few posts that I've written where I've taken some quotes from it and put some of the ideas together. There's one about hope. There's one about tears. There's one about walking and the fact that it's a journey. There's one about praying, and a lot of it is about the steps that we can take. So do go and have a look at that. It'd be really good to upskill yourself in helping others face suffering, and also upskill yourself for the time you face it. Maybe you'll face it now in your family. I hope not. I pray not. But somebody you know will. So by all means, go over to adrianwarnock.com and have a look at some of my old posts. I don't claim to be an expert. I do claim to be someone who's been struggling hard for 3 years with a life-threatening condition, and it's not been easy. There's been many tears, there's been much suffering, there's been much struggle. I've got irritable at times with my family. I would not say that I've always been a good Christian through it all. There have been times, where I've doubted. There have been times where I've wrestled. There have been times where it's just been anguish. But there's also been times where I've sensed the presence of God with me and the peace of God with me, and have just learnt a lot. So go over to my blog and have a look at some of those things. You never know, it might be helpful to you. And anyone who's ill, so like Johnny, I pray for you that God will heal you, that you'll feel better soon, and that you'll be able to get out there and do stuff for other people. And if anyone would like to have a video chat with me, send me a direct message with your mobile number. I've got plenty of time in my diary, and because I'm sitting down all the day, apart from my exercises, I've even got a little bit more energy than I used to. So that's all good. All right, well, I really have been talking long enough now. I hope that little bit of public service is of use. I would recommend the newscast, coronavirus podcast, or the coronavirus newscast that the BBC have out. I would recommend the videos by this scientist. Well, it's actually a nurse on some of the science. He explains it all in a nice, simple way, and I'll put a link to that. New Covent Garden Market, Sainsbury's plus the other groceries, and ask for help. And give yourself a break, try and chill and watch a bit of TV and not worry about all this too much, but also pray and do some meditation, get into Christian mindfulness, and maybe join this revival conference that my good friend Rich, who I've never met face to face, but I've interviewed now and chatted to for a few hours on this video thing. And we're going to share some of that with you, and already have actually, so you can see some interviews with Rich. And all the best. I hope to do a couple of interviews with some people over the coming weeks over the internet, and hope I can provide a little bit of help to some people as I sit here and I'm something of an expert on being on my own, really. Never used to be. I used to like being out there and chatting to everyone, life and soul of the party, all that stuff. But actually, really important to learn how to enjoy your own company. That took me a long time. But there we go. All right, I've waffled on long enough. Go about your business. Try and get some food in. And keep safe. God bless. Well, you've made it to the end of an episode of Adrian Warnock's Christian podcast. You must have some stamina. Well done. And if you liked what you heard, you know what to do. Subscribe, review, tell all your friends about it. And in the meantime, why not visit adrianwarnock.com?